Okay, hello everyone. I'm not sure if how much audience we already have. Let me wait for a little bit, but we are already streaming. So don't worry, we'll start the webinar really soon. Okay, hello everyone. I would like to know if everyone have audio. Apparently, we have no trouble with audio. That's very good. So hello, Zohab. I am not sure how to say your name. I hope I said it right. Okay, the audio is good. That's perfect. We have some people watching already. So I'm going to start with a few announcements. First thing is we have some latency. So the time it takes for you to start listening to what I say, and the time gap between you start listening and I actually saying it is around 30 seconds. So it takes around 30 seconds for me for you to start hearing your answers and my answer to your comments. So don't worry, I'm not ignoring you. It just takes a little while for the answer to get to you. Also, I would like to shout out to our social media. I don't know how you came to know about this webinar, but you can visit us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and Twitter. You just have to look for ChronoScan, and you'll see our logo there. That is us on social media. And also, you can always visit our page on chronoscan.org to learn more about ChronoScan. With all that said, let's begin the webinar. Okay, everyone, welcome to the Table Data on ChronoScan webinar. And as the name says it, we are going to talk all about tables today and how to use ChronoScan to capture those tables. The first thing I want to talk about is the elements that a table is comprised of, so we can understand exactly what it is that we need here. So here you have a document with some of its information in a table format. In orange, we have the header, and the header will tell us what type of data we have in each column. And then we have all the information separated by rows. And the individual element we want to capture is the cell. So what we are doing here is we are setting everything up so we can capture each individual cell and then labeling it with the header, according to the header. With that out of the way, now let's jump into the tools that ChronoScan have for us to deal with table data. In ChronoScan, we have the data panels, and the data panels will offer us up to 4 grid controls. And the grid control is the actual table we are going to draw over our documents to capture each individual cell. And each grid control can have header fields and custom fields. The header fields, we can use them to either mimic or mirror our actual document configuration, or we can just create enough header fields as we desire. Let's say we just want to capture 2 or 3 columns. We just need 2 or 3 header fields. And if we want to capture, to custom capture a cell or a column, actually, you can use custom fields. Let's say we want to capture only a certain type of data, or only the first line or the last line. And we are going to take a look at all the options we have with custom fields, but we can use it to capture just a part of some information on a cell. And to manage those grids, we have the grid menu and the column menu. The grid menu will offer us all the options we can use for the entire grid, and the column menu will offer us options regarding the column. That's actually a master column menu. The normal column menu is a little bit different, but we are going to take a look at everything in a little bit as we go through the setups. With that said, let's jump into ChronoScan. As you can see here, I have 4 setups. It might seem like a big number, but some of them are, the first one especially is very simple and is good for getting us used to ChronoScan. That's the main, that's the window you get from ChronoScan when you first open it. Excuse me. Okay, so we have several setups here, and we are going to talk a little bit about different techniques to capture each of those setups. I will open the simple table here. As you can see, we have documents with a single page, and all we have is a simple table capturing the entire information. As you can see here on the modules panel on your right, you can see the information is here, and as we move documents, the information is being captured. And then we can also export it as an XML. That's very simple. We are going to start with that. But before we move on to the setup, let me talk about those other setups here. We have a much more complex kind of table here, and that's the setup done. You can see we have some red on our documents, and I will explain it to you a little bit later. But first, you can see here, if I toggle the text, that shows, that button up here shows all the text that ChronoScan is capturing from your pages. You will see that on the table area, we have no text. But if we move documents, oh, sorry about that. Okay, there we go. That's solved. You will see that now when I move documents, only that first record is showing. And we use that technique because you can see we have a type of subheader in our table. So besides having the data labeled using that header here, we have a subheader here. And we want to separate our data. And here on the capture, you can see that we have the header field on each of those lines. And while we move, if I click read, you can see we have the header information, the entire header information on each of our lines, just to make sure we are not getting lost on where we are when we are reading through the extracted data. And as we move, you can see each record is being read at a time. And this technique works very well also for documents with more, when the table goes from one page to the other one. Sorry again. My Firefox usually does that. Okay, as you can see, that's perfect. And what we use here, the technique we are using here, is a report split. We are using a trigger. And if you go to the triggers panel here, you'll see that we have that trigger here. That's the report split trigger or record split trigger. And that's how we separate each of those reports. And that technique might be useful, but you might want to use another technique that is on the multiple records number 2. If I open here the document, you will see that what we have here is a little bit different. Let me turn off the text. Instead of having only a single line for the header, we have 2 lines. So we have to take that in mind too, because depending on the way we are going to set everything up, those 2 lines might not be well captured. So the technique I used here is the search master line technique. I'll click on edit grid so I can show you. You can see here we have search master line and then our regular expression here. And then again, that subheader information is always stored here. You can see on each line we have the header information, so we never get lost. And there we go, you can see all the data is being captured. This technique is it seems cleaner because you don't have as many documents. You only have as much documents as the actual number of documents you imported. But it will always depend, and you can see also the table moves. So we are going to take a look at that too. So it always depends on the outcome and how you need your table to be captured. Sometimes you just have to test it out and see which method, which technique works best for you. We are going to learn how to set up all of those things in a little bit. And then one last one, you can see here we have a normal table, and first thing we notice, we have here the header. We don't have anything complicated here. The only problem is the table moves, and I'm going to show you, besides triggering the position with those 2 bits of text here, you can see in green, that one on the header and that one on the subtotal field. I'm going to teach you another technique when you have moving tables here. That might be very useful depending on the types of tables and the number of documents you have. And you can see here the data is captured, but on that description column, we have the date and then the description of each task. That's actually Dutch. And what I did here is I have a custom field. Let me push it here so you can see. And I'm capturing only the first line of the details of each detail cell. So the date always stays on the same column here, separated from the rest of the description. That's how you do a custom. If I open the fields here, you can see that's the date field. It is a custom field, and then I'm cutting the first line. We will be taking a look at those and really trying to get to understand it very well in a little bit. But first, let's start with the simple table, so we get a good grasp at everything related to grids, the basics on grids. I will click on the new batch button up here and then run the job wizard. The job wizard is enough. We don't need any advanced options. I'm going to call it simple table job. There we go. We don't need IntelliTag search. I will deselect it and click on next. We have single image documents. Next. Here, we are not focusing on data fields, so I will just remove all of them and leave only one, because we can't have 0. You can see at least one field must exist. So I will leave scan date, and I will also name it like this because we are doing a XML export. I will show you what happens in a little bit. We click next. We are going to set up the output in a little bit. Next. Here we have single image. That's perfect. I'll just click on finish. And then let's create our first batch. Simple table batch 1. There we go. And then we hit create batch. Now I'm going to just drag and drop my documents. And it is such a simple setup that I don't even need to worry about importing only the first one, setting it up, and then importing the rest of them. I will just import everything, set the resolution to 300, apply to next file. We can start a new document or not, it doesn't matter, and then click OK. We wait a little bit while ChronoScan do its work. And you can see here the documents. I always like to start with the first one, but in this case, especially since the table don't move, as you can see on all the documents, the table is always on the same place. So that is very good for us. Makes it really easy and simple so we can focus on what really matters. What I'm going to do here first is to set up our table. And to set up our table, our grid, I'm going to click on the Data Panels button up here. And notice that I already opened. So I open the document by double-clicking on it. And then I click on the Data Panels button. You can see here the 4 grid controls. The lookup viewer is going to be on another webinar, but we are going to talk about it at some point. I will enable the first grid control, and those setups we are focusing on a single grid control because we are trying to get the basics settled in and the advanced too, but not with multiple grid controls. But if we get enough requests, we might even do another webinar using more than one grid control. And then I can edit the grid control. To do that, I will click here and then click on Options. As you can see here, we have the default fields. I'm just going to click on Delete All and click Yes. As you can see here, those are the data fields. I'm not going to mess up with those options here. And then I will mirror the table we have here. You can see we have some fields that are blank, and then we have some with information. I'm just going to capture those. So I'm going to create a new one, clicking on the Add Data Capture field here. Those are the header fields. I'm having description. There we go. That's alphanumeric. It is very important that we set our field types all the time, because this way we are ensuring a very reliable capture. Maybe sometimes ChronoScan might be having trouble capturing a number or a code, but if we have the field type set up correctly, ChronoScan will do its best guess to make sure the data is correct. Okay, second one, quantity. And that's a numeric. There we go. And we have several different types here. Okay, we have price. That's an amount. So ChronoScan will be looking for price for a monetary currency. We have subtotal. There we go. That's also amount instead of numeric. And then we have the tax rate. I'm going to call it tax_rate. And then I'm going to set it as numeric. And since we don't have any decimals, I'm just going to set it to 0. You even have the drop-down menu here. We set it to 0. And then we are ready to go. I will click OK. I will close this panel. And you will see the first thing you notice is you get the modules panel here. And obviously you can move it around. Since we are not using any form view functionality, I will just take it out here and put it here, and then close this one. And there we go. We have only the modules panel here on the right. That's perfect for us. And you also notice that that configuration will only work for the data entry tab up here. If we go back to the scan input, it is the default. On the data entry, it is the one we just set. Now, to build the grid, what we have to do is click on the Edit Grid button on the modules panel, and you can see the cursor is already set to New Capture Grid. And all I'm going to do is go up here on the beginning of the table and then draw that's up to bottom, top to bottom, and left to right until the end of the table here. We are not interested in capturing that data down here. I will zoom in a little bit now to set up our columns. You can see ChronoScan do a very good guess, but we need to manually set it up later. The columns where we have information, I will just mirror the lines here, copy them, and I just have to have my mouse here and move it around, click and move around. Here's the tax rates, perfect. Subtotal here. Here it is set to nothing and we don't want something here, so that's perfect. And I will also pull up the header a little bit. I have the mouse down here and then push it up a little bit. There we go. This is price, quantity. Here we have some extra lines we don't need. And what I'm going to do is just click on the header we don't need and then click on delete column. And there we go. Again, another one we don't need, just delete column again. You can see that's very easy to set up, to move the columns around. We don't need that one either. Let's delete it. And that one again. There we go. Now we need a description here. And now our table is ready. We don't need to set up anything else here, just the master column. You can see that's by default the master column, but we can have no master column, but that's not advisable. Or we can set any other column as the master column, and you can see the function is very well set here. The master column will split the rows based on that column, on the master column. And you can either split over, so ChronoScan will see the text and split over the text, or you can split under the text. All of those options are going to help you on your grid capture, and you have to try them out to see which one works best. As I can see here, that will work very well as a master column splitting under. Now I just click read, and you can see all the information was captured. Each cell was captured on the correct place. And we even skipped those empty columns we don't need. So that's perfect. We have even the tax rate, but it is a little bit too much to the left. Okay, there we go. All the information. And when we move and click read, you can see we have the information correctly captured. And it is working for all of our tables. So what we are going to do now is to process everything. I will go back to the scan input tab where we imported our documents. We'll click on the first one, right click it, select all, and then I will click on the button process selection. Here, I want to make sure I will enable read grid control, otherwise the grids are not going to be read. And this way, ChronoScan will read all the grids on all the documents. I will just click OK and we wait for it. You can see it was very fast. And now if I click on the panels and open the data modules and click on the different documents, you will see the information captured here. Again, I will do the same thing I did before. I will open this one. And there we go. And I will close the batches panel. And there we go. You can see the data is all captured. To export that, I'm just going to click on export batch up here. We have a PDF as default. We might want to export the PDF with searchable text. I will just leave that one, but let me remove it and create a new one because I want to use the new nuance module. Okay, to the file system and then click on head. You can see here the options for the PDF output, and we want on the compatibility, I want to optimize for size. There we go. I'll click OK. Here the name, we can change the directory, the name, the extension, everything. I'll just click OK because I'm happy with it, and then add a new one. I can even add a new one inside that file system. Oh no, that's not what I want. I want to add a new output file format. I will click on XML report to the file system. I will click on add. And now, as I told you, why I replaced all these spaces with underscores is because when you are doing a XML export, you don't want all of those characters here. That's the space character on XML files. So I'm just going to remove it here, but the best way is just to remove it on the form view on your documents. And the first thing you have to take care of here is on the grid control module 1. If we had other grid controls enabled, we would have grid control module 2, 3, and 4 here. We only have one, so that's the only one we get here. And here you can control which fields, which headers are going to be exported. We can turn off the entire grid here. I just move down, okay. Where is it? Here is it. We can not export the grid, and we can turn fields on and off with the include field for each of the fields here. We have the description, quantity, and everything is good. Now I'm just going to click OK. Here I'm just going to leave it as it is, click OK. And now export. We wait for ChronoScan to convert each document. That's the nuance. I'm just doing it to show you that we have a nuance PDF module with color compression, so we can get a lot of compression on your documents to save on storage space. I will open the XML here so we can take a look at the data. Okay, there we go. That is the data we just captured. We have doc ID, document type, document date, and then here starts the X grid or the grid section. We have the description, quantity, price, subtotal, and tax rate. And that's probably exactly what we wanted. If you want to export to any other place in any other file format like this, we have the nuance PDF. I'm not going to open it now, but you could open it like this. There you go. So you have the document, searchable text, and everything else you needed. I'll just close it. And now, I hope you got the basics. Let's move to a more complex setup. I'll click here on the new batch again, and I will run the job wizard again. This one is going to be the ones with the headers. So I'm going to call it subheader number 1 job. There we go. Click on next. I'm going to disable IntelliTag. Click on next again. And then we have multi-image documents. I'm going to split them manually. I'll click on next. Again, I'm going to remove all of those because we don't need them. Just leaving scan date is perfect. I'll click on next. Next again, and finish here. And now let's create our first batch. That is going to be subheader 1, batch 1. Perfect. Create batch, or we can just hit enter here. Now let's get our documents inside, and I'm just going to drag and drop. And since we're going to use the report split, I'm just importing the first one first. I will set the resolution to 300 and everything else as default. And just click OK. We wait a little bit. Those are big documents. Okay, there we go. Now, let's take a look at them. That's always a good first step, to open and take a look at our documents and how we are going to do the capture. You can see here, as I told you, we have that text that separates each report, and we want to capture each report individually. The first thing is to set up the report split trigger. So what I'm going to do here is first create a horizontal reference line that will be for the table later. So let's go on the OCR triggers button up here, and then I will set, you can see we have on the cursor, we have a horizontal and a vertical line. I'm going to create the first trigger up here. We'll set the horizontal line to the, just under the header of the table here, like this. And I will create from the top to the bottom. There we go. Because the reference line will be created on the top of the box here. Okay, Docufy, thank you for, I just saw your message. Thank you for watching. You can always watch the replay later on. And then you can see the properties of that trigger we just created will pop up right here. First thing, and I like to do it for everything, it makes everything much easier, is I'm going to rename that trigger here. This one is going to be called table start. There we go. We want to show on all pages. Oh, sorry about that. So many things happening today. Okay, and I want to run it on all types. And down here on the action, we don't want to create a position reference. And you can see we have many triggers here. We want to create a horizontal reference line. And you can see the green line here is the horizontal reference line here. And we want to do the same for the bottom of the table. I'll just make sure the line is right on the bottom of the table, and then I will create the box again from the top to the bottom. I will just click OK on this window, and I will name it again. And if you missed that window, let's say it moves to another place, you can just make sure you have the OCR triggers button selected, and then you can find that little icon. You click it, and then you go on the properties panel here. It will open the properties for that trigger. I'm just calling it table end. I want to run it on all pages, and I want to run on all types. And again, down here, I want to create a horizontal reference line. And you can see the line is green. That's perfect for us. Now I'm ready to create the report split trigger. To create that, let's click up here again on the OCR triggers button. And since we are using that text, we need to create a column here that encompasses the full table on all of our documents. So I'm just going to create a very generous area here from the top to the bottom of the document. And then you can see a lot of text here. I just need to select one that matches what I want. Or I can manually type it in. I can just select it like this. And then I can add it here and do whatever I want. I'll just use that bit of text and click OK. You can see it is triggering on this page. I'm going to call it report split because I like it. It's a very good practice to name your triggers so you don't get lost. I want to run it on all pages and all types. And the most important thing about this technique is to change the onTextExist to regular expression exist. Trust me, you don't want to have your text on that field here. And then down here on the action, we have a report split action, and that's the one we are going to choose. And then that's also very important, but not as important as that first one, to changing on text exist to on regular expression exist. But since we have always the same text, we should turn that to true. Otherwise, we will have a very big mess. And I'm teaching you this technique because you always have to know which technique is best for your documents, and your document might not work with the other techniques we are going to talk about today. We have the report split. Let's move pages and see if it triggers. You can see it triggers on each page. That's only one document, but it's triggering all the time, so it's perfect. What I'm going to do now is just select all, click on process selection, And I have to make sure I have OCR Trigger selected. It is selected. So just click OK. And now the magic will happen. You already can see a lot of red coming up on our documents. That means that ChronoScan is eliminating the text between each record. And also there's another downside to this technique. It takes a little longer because you have to process the report splits. Okay, it's detecting type already. And that's only the first document. If we wanted to have many more documents, first thing, it would take longer, and then we would have many documents on our work area. That might not be desirable. But if it is the only technique that works with your documents, then you have to do it. Okay, you can see here on the first page, if I toggle view text, you can see nothing on the table is red, and that's perfect. And as we move documents, you can see we have the reports here coming up. That's the first one, second one, third one, and it's very well split. Now, all we have to do is to build our table. I will go back to our first document here. We don't need any text on our table. I will turn off the view text option. And here, what I'm going to do, let me zoom in a good level here, and let's create our first grid. I will click again on the data panels button. Don't ever forget that, otherwise you won't be able to create grids. I will enable the first one, click on it, and then click on options. Delete all, yes, perfect. And then let's create all the fields. We have here description. Oh, description, there we go, alphanumeric, perfect. We have u.m, that is alphanumeric also. Collapse everything, let's keep creating them. We have quantity, and as you can see, it is numeric and have 2 decimals. I could even remove those decimals because they don't matter, but I'm just going to leave it here. We have price. There we go. That is actually amount. So ChronoScan will be looking for currency. We have subtotal. That's amount. And we have tax rate. Again, with underscores to make sure we have everything good. Tax rate, that will be a numeric value. And I believe I have everything. Click OK, perfect. I will close this one and now draw the grid over. To draw the grid again, we have to make sure we are on the modules panel, and we have on the edit grid option selected here, and the cursor will change to new capture grid. I'm going to use those reference lines we just created. Put the cursor around that one. Again, top to bottom, left to right. And line up here. There we go. We won't have much trouble because the tables don't move from page to page. So that's perfect. Now, let's zoom in and make sure our columns are on the right places. Have to move that one, remove all of those. There we go. We can remove again. And to remove, just left click or right click. Both of them work. Here's good. Here's not. There we go. I want to delete this one. This one, we can either set the right one or you can make that one. And I don't want the header to be down here. The orange field is the header. I want to push it up. So I have that information available here. I want to set this as description. This one as UM. Quantity. Prezzo. Importo totale subtotal. And tax rate. That's perfect. We have many numbers here, so we might want to use that one. We don't have any data here, so it won't work. And also we have some reports that go from one page to the next. So we want to go here on the grid menu. And the grid menu is only available when we select the modules panel, select the grid control, and then we click Edit Grid. The grid menu will show up on the grid you just selected. And then the grid menu, top left of the grid, I will click on it, and you can see the grid menu here. What I'm going to do is use on all pages. This way, this table, when we have documents with more than one page or a report that goes from one page to the other, the grid will show up there too. Let's move to the second page here, second document, and you can see it is already reading. And you can see by the reading even, if you click read, it will read. That split's not working well. So I'm just going to click on Edit Grid, go to the master column here, and try split over. And when I click read again, you can see that's the kind of reading we want. We have, again, a subheader here, and the information we want under it. And that will work for all of our documents. If we click clicking, we will have that, especially for the documents with more that go from one page to the next. Now, let's say we don't want that information here. We want to have it as a subheader on each line. What we are going to do is to first create a new field, and I'm going to push this to the left. That's how you configure the options. Push it to the left on the modules panel, and then click on options here. And that headers, that fields window will show up again. I will create a new one, call it subheader, leave it as alphanumeric because it is alphanumeric, and then click OK. We don't need to set anything else at this point. Now I will go up here. Let me go back to documents here. And the way we set up that, we are going to use a master line search. The way we set this up is we have to create a column to the left of the subheader. That means that empty column here. And you can see I can't edit the grid. I have to click on Edit Grid again on the modules panel. Okay, Desiree, the webinars are always recorded on YouTube. So don't worry about not attending right now. We will have it recorded, don't worry. Now we go up here on the column that we have, actually have an empty one. If we didn't, we would have to create a new one using the split column here. But we have it, so let's just use it. I will set this as search master line. And you can see the regular expression window shows up, and then I can just click it here, ref.ns.ndt. When I click OK, you can see the line, the entire line that contains that information we just typed in. That's a regular expression. So it becomes green. So that's a subheader. And if I read it again, you can see it disappears. That's almost perfect. What we want to do now is to set the field, the column we just had as search for master line, to this subheader. And also what I'm going to do is click on options here and move the subheader to the top. So it is the first. Makes sense, the subheader to the left. You can see that's wrong. We click read, and now everything is right. We have the subheader information on each line, and we have the data captured. And that will work for the entire set of documents. As we move through, you can see the reading is just perfect, especially when it moves from one page to the other, like this one. Let's take a look how it works here. You can see it's reading the entire thing. When we move pages, that's the rest of the information that wasn't captured. And that's perfect. Now, all we have to do is go up. I'm not going to import all of the other documents because that would take much longer and we are running out of time. I'll just select all, click on process selection, and at this point we just need to make sure we have grid control selected, and then we click OK. All the tables will read, and now that takes much less time. It's very fast because we have several little grids with very little information, so that won't take long. It would take long on another way. Now we click export batch here. We don't want to do that PDF export. Let's try the XML again to take a look at the data and how it was exported. Again, you can see the space here, document type, scan date. There we go. Everything is set to true. We want to export a subheader. You click OK and OK again. And here we can see a preview. It's not always right, so I'm just going to export and take a look at the file. As you can see here, we have the subheader information and then the actual information, again the subheader. So that's a success. All the information is here. We have the price, we have everything good. That's perfect. Now, let's see the other technique to capture the tables with a subheader. Again, new batch button, job wizard, and this one is going to be master line job. I just missed a, there we go. Everything neat and pretty, so we don't get lost. IntelliTag disabled. Next, we have multi-image documents and we are going to split them manually. We click on next. Again, remove everything. You probably would want to keep some or even use the invoice fields. Oh, but for this webinar, I'm just going to leave that one and I will name it like this. Next, next, and finish. Now let's name our first batch. Master line batch 1. There we go, create batch. And we are ready to import our documents. And the challenge we have on those ones, let me import it. 300 color, okay, perfect. The challenge is the dual line, the header, the subheader with 2 lines. That's it. How do we deal with that kind of stuff? And we also have another problem, that is the table moves on the last page. It is different. Let's wait for ChronoScan to process it. Okay, let's move to the last page and you can see the table moves here. And also it is different on the first page and on the intermediate ones. For this example, I'm just going to use triggers, but we have another way to do that and we will see that on the last setup. Okay, the first thing we want to do is to create our grid. You can see that technique is a little bit faster. Let me push this to the right so I can see all the header, and then data panels again. We enable the first one. Let me push it to the right, grid control 1, options, and then delete all. Now let's create our header as we want. We have article code. That's actually always numeric, so I can make it numeric without any decimals. We have supplier code. I'm just going to leave it as supplier. And okay, supplier ID. That's alphanumeric. We have description. Descrizione. I don't know how to speak Italian, so don't mind my Italian. Quantity. Okay. That's numeric without any decimals as far as I can see. Data field 5, that is price, and that is an amount. We have subtotal, data field 6, subtotal, amount again. The last one is the tax rate. Tax rate, and then instead of alphanumeric, let's make it numeric and without decimals, because the tax doesn't have decimals here. Okay, we have the table, the header fields set up. Now let's create a table. Again, we click on Edit Grid. The button is kind of hidden here. You click here on that Edit Grid. Make sure you have New Capture Grid selected again. And let's draw the grid over the table we have. I'm just going to use that line here. And I'm going to give some space here to the left because we're going to use the master line. I will leave some space here and then left to right, top to bottom, until the bottom of the table here. You can see I have to set up the header. Let's push it up. And now let's set our fields. You can see here that ChronoScan did a very good job at guessing the columns. We just need to set up where the headers are. This is empty, price, quantity, description, and I can remove that one here. That one is nothing also. I can remove it. I can move it here, and then the description goes up to here. There we go. That's the supplier ID and the article code. That's perfect. The table is almost ready. If I click read, the first thing you can see some of the information is not quite good as we wanted because of those two lines here. So what I'm going to do, first, that one works well as a master column and it does a very good job splitting under. We could change that again here. But the first thing is I have multi-page documents. I will just use this on all pages because we have many pages and different pages. I will just use that technique, use on all pages. And then you can see we have more information. Before we had only a few rows. Now we have over 200 rows because it's reading on the other pages. Okay, first problem. Let's move page and see how the table not work on this one. And that's the problem with the top. And on the last page, let's go to the last page. It is a problem on the bottom here and on the top also. So I'm going to use a text on the header. That's a very good technique. I'm going to use a text on the header to set the position of the table. Again, I move to the first page where the table is on the right place and click on OCR Triggers. I need to make a very generous area for this text because it is moving all around the page up and down. So I'm just going to make it a very nice column here. Now I have to find the text here, or I can type it in. But since I'm not sure how to type it in, I will just look for it here. And hopefully it won't take long to find. There we go. Here's the field. I just select it and it shows down here. I'll click OK. You can see it is triggering. And you can see the properties of the trigger show up here right away. I will just call it table start. Again, that's very good practice. And I want it to show on all pages because all the table moves on all pages. And I also want to run on all types. The fuzziness, it's a very short word, so I might want to change it, and we have very good OCR results. So I'm just going to change the fuzziness to 1 to make sure only that phrase, that word is detected. And now we want to create a position reference. Let's move tables, let's move pages to see if it is triggering. Here it triggers, it is green. Here is triggering also. Perfect. Let's move to the last page. It is triggering perfectly. Let's go to the first page here. Again, on the modules panel. And then edit grid to access the grid menu here on the top left. We click on the grid menu. And on the upper position, we don't want it on the background. We want it on the table start. And when you see those blue lines, it means it's perfect. Let's move to the second page and you can see the table moves together. Let's go to the last page. Perfect. Now we have to set the bottom of the table here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of those pieces of text here. I'm just going to use imponibile. Imponibile. I'm not sure how to say it in Italian. So again, OCR triggers. This trigger, I'm just going to make it on the last page. So I don't need a very generous area. I will just make it like this. And find the text. There you go. Again, that's just one word. The property is open. It is just one word, so I just want to make the fuzziness smaller, make sure it's not wrong. I just want to run it on the last page, and that's going to be called table end. We want on all types also. And that's it. Now, you can see it is triggering. And what we have to do now is go to the modules panel, click on edit grid to show up the grid menu. And then I don't want to set the lower position because that's a trigger that only happens on the last page. And the lower position, when you have it triggered to a trigger, the trigger must happen for the grid to read. So we want to leave lower position as the background and then lower limit as table end. And you can see here we have the old name of the trigger. That actually happens. But since we rename it, we are just going to use the new name. If we select that one, we would not get any good results. We just select the correct one, and you can see the table is on the right place. And then when we move, you can see the table goes down again. The only problem now is that the table is not reaching the bottom. What we have to do here, I will just go here and push the table down. That's perfect. And then go to the first page. You can see that that will give us some empty space down here, but that doesn't really matter because we don't have any document down there, so it doesn't matter. Here, it's working great. On the second page again, so we don't need to change anything. I will read, and you can see now we have a more reliable read. But we still want to extract that double header here. Let me push it up a little bit. There we go. And to extract that double header, first I'm going to split the column here once, split again one more time. That's the article code. And now I'm going to use that one for the first line. I will just click on the header here. It's a very little space. Just click here and search a master line. And I'm going to type in ordine and dot. That's dot. There we go. When I click OK, you can see it turns green. So it's working perfectly. The entire line will work as a subheader. And now here, I want to search for another master line, and that's going to be called DDT. And it also ends with n dot, DDT number. I click OK. You can see it's not triggering. That's because of the area. So I'm going to remove that one. It must be closer. I'm going to push this more and split again. So we have to create a very tight area here. Let's use this one. It's a little bit even difficult to click there correctly. There we go. And then search master line here. I'll just click DDT number. Okay, still not working. Let me. That's probably because it has to do with the positioning of the trigger here. When we read, we already have one of the lines being removed. We just need to set it for the last one here. That's not being read. Let me edit the grid. Okay, I didn't want to do that. The problem we are having here is with the second one. It's not picking up. If I change this one, there we go, first line, the second line, and the first line here. It's not working because it is a little bit too far. What I'm going to do is just move the table here, so we have less of an area. I will delete all of those, and I will have to reset the table. Maybe it's a little bit too much. I have too much of a zoom here. And then let's set everything up again. There we go. Everything went a little bit too much to the left. Here it is. Here it is. And there we go. We can move on the right, but we can't move on the left. But it doesn't matter. Now, I'm going to split again and do the search. Oh, that's not supposed to happen. I just changed the master line. Let's do it here. There we go. And now here, I will do that again. The area is smaller to the left of the last column. And that should work great. And okay. We can even see something bad here because the header is going over. There we go. And then here, let's look for the DDT. You can see it's still not working. And I'm not entirely sure why. Okay. We'll have to take a look at that a little bit later because it was supposed to be working right now. I'm not really sure why. Well, we'll have to leave that as it is. Let me try one last thing. Let's split over. And even then it doesn't work that well. Let me split here. Let's search for a master line here. That might make it work better because of the position. I was just changing from one to the other. Okay, so I'm sorry that we have that trouble here. I can show you exactly as it was here, but we will be taking a look at it. As you can see here, it works perfectly on the setup document. And we have the two lines being captured as a master line, and then we have the dummy headers here. They are just normal alphanumeric fields. And then we set them here, just like we did for the other ones. Okay, that was a fail. I'm really sorry. Let's move on to the next one. And then when we have everything sorted out, we will keep you posted about that one. Okay, now let's create a new job on the job wizard. That will be a custom field setup. And also I'm going to show you another technique for moving tables. Custom field, we don't need IntelliTag. We have multi-image documents and we are going to split them manually. I'll click on next. Generic fields. Okay, scan date. Again, move it like this. Click on next. Next and finish. And that will be custom fields batch 1. There we go. Create batch. Now I will close the batches panel here and import the documents. There we go. 300 and then okay. That will import everything. That's perfect. We are already over time, but I promise it's worth your time, so you should stay on. You can see that we have the problem of the table moving around here. That's the first page, second page. So what we are going to do here is create the header. Let's just enable the first grid control here and delete all. Let's create the first one. That's description. Perfect. Alphanumeric. Second one, that is hours. Third one is rate. And last one is total. Okay. We have it set up. Click OK, close. Now, let's draw our grid. And the trick here, let's just go from top to bottom, left to right. There we go. The trick here is each grid control can have more than one grid. So what I'm going to do here is, that's the grid for the first page, and I will make sure it is used on first page. Now, when we move to the second page, you can see it's very different. I'll just draw again. That's a second table, but on the same grid control. And again, what I'm going to do here is, on the grid menu, use in intermediate pages. And on the last page, the intermediate pages are all the same. That's the last page. I'll just draw it here. There we go. And this one is used on last page. And when I read, you can see all the 13 things are imported. The 13 records are imported here. We move, so we have a different table for each page. And it might be easier for you if you have documents with not many tables and it's not moving too much like this one. You can do this technique. We have everything kind of set here. Let's make it rate, hours and description. Now we will get some data. And you can see some data is missing. And that's also part of the deal. We don't always get all the information captured. And what we have to do here is to manually input when we don't get the data. But first, let me show you a very neat thing here. Now I'm going to create a custom field to capture the date here. So the date, you can see that we have several lines, but let's say we want the date to show up on a different field. I will just click on options again on the modules panel, create a new field that's going to be called date, change it to date. Oh, actually not date. I want to change it to custom. That's how you do a custom field. And then on the function, you can see here we have many functions. We can copy a column, we can cut last line, we can cut the right of a word, we can use a search mask, and the search mask, you have to type a regular expression. You can search for a regular expression. We have many options here. What I'm going to do is cut the first line of a column. And then on the parameters, you can choose the column name. Here, I'm going to cut the first line of the description. When we click OK, and if I read, you can see the data actually went entirely to that date one, and that's because the description field is set to remove carriage return. This way, ChronoScan will read everything as a single line. If I set it to no, ChronoScan will read the different lines on each cell. Then I click OK and read. You can see we have only the description here, and then the date down here. And that's a very simple example of a custom capture, but you can always go as wild as you like. Then what you would do is go back here, process everything, select all, process, read grid control, and then you would want a module panel, data modules panel open here, and then you can look at the data. You can see here we have some data missing. So we open the document, we click, and we can see here we have a 3 missing, we have 4 here, we have more data missing here because it's on the wrong place. That's actually a problem. I'm not really sure why. Okay, the table on the second page is not correctly set up, so we would have to come here, make it hours here, and then rate here. Okay, let's read again, and on the last page we would have to set it right also. So don't forget to set the tables when you are using 3 different tables. Now read again, and then we just have to do that one. 3 here, 4 here. That's perfect. All the rest of the data is correctly captured. We actually have some weird information here because of that line. If we move it here, it will probably be good. No, not yet. Let me see the problem here. By moving this, it should correct it. If not, you always have to cut it here. Or we can also change the rate maybe to something different. Let's see the rate field here. That's alphanumeric, but if we change it to, that's a rate, that's a numeric with 2 decimals, that should fix everything. I'm not entirely sure why it disappeared. So that's how you do your grid setups. I'm not going to take any more of your time because we are already way over. Okay, we have a question here. I'm sorry I didn't see before. Let me see. When I manually change a value in the module panel after it has been read, the way. Oh, there is a way you can, if you have to first process everything, then you change the data. So let's say you are adding the values here, 3 and 4 that were missing. And then when you export, that data will be there. It will only disappear if you process again. So you have to make sure you only correct the data you captured as the last step before exporting. So you add the 3, add the 4, and then you export the batch here. That's how you do it. Let me just do one last thing. I'm not sure why rate's not reading. Oh, rate's reading. I'm just crazy. Here it is. Okay, there we go. I was mistaken. Now the zeros, the ones showing up at the end are gone. And we are good to export. We just changed the 3 and 4. We added it. We didn't have it. And we can export. Let's add a nuance PDF to the file system because we want to compress it, optimize for size here on the compatibility to make it small. And then we want a XML, let's say, just as an example. We will leave it as it is and then export. You can see ChronoScan is using the module to convert. And I want to show you this because it's very important. Now you have a document with searchable text, and let me open the original one. It didn't have searchable text as you can see. So we have searchable text here on each of our pages. And we also have a XML file with all the information we just captured and edited. Okay, so I know I'm over the schedule. If you have any questions, just leave them on the comments box. I will be on for a little longer, so I can answer them. If you happen to have more questions later, you can just email us at support@chronoscan.org, or you can just reply if you were subscribed to the reminder list. You can just reply to that email and you have your questions all answered. I will just wait for a little bit, and if you don't have any answers, we don't have many people watching already. If you don't have any questions, I will just end the webinar. Okay, apparently there are no questions for now. So that's it, guys. I hope you liked it, and I will see you on the next webinar. Bye bye.